Alan. How are you, buddy?
Good. We're renovating our house again. The first story is going great. The second floor, that's a different story.
Hey, Dave. How are you?
Doing well so far, despite the tornado and the lack of natural internet. I'm tethered to my phone.
Oh, well, thanks for being here. Hey, guys. Thanks for the Phoenix Contact team for being here. Hey, did you all know that Albert Einstein was a genius?
Yes.
Never heard of that.
Knew that.
Oh, yeah. His brother, Frank, he was a monster.
Yeah. Hey, what's brown? What's brown and smells like a bell?
I don't know.
Dung.
Dave, my wife told me the other night to take the spider out instead of killing him. We went out.
Where'd you take him?
Went out. We had a few drinks. He's a nice guy. He's actually a web designer.
Hidden talents, man. Who knew?
Come on, Gene. You can at least smile.
I think Gene would win this contest here.
And what? Not breaking?
Yeah, not breaking.
Yeah.
I was testing the system again, and it makes me nervous that it takes like 3 minutes to connect. So I'm sitting there holding my breath, hoping it's going to connect. So it finally did. So now I'm happier.
Okay, well, good. Well, everybody, thanks, guys. David Schultz says if he ever changes careers, he's going to probably clean mirrors. He can really see himself doing that.
Brilliant. Yeah. I know you guys are always really big on dad jokes, but when do you know when a joke becomes a dad joke?
And when it becomes apparent.
Boom.
Yeah.
Oh man. Hey, everybody.
Been feeling really moody and kind of run down lately, and I Googled my symptoms, and it turns out I have kids. Yeah, kids. I got kids. So I came home the other day and found that my kids are on eBay all day. So I lowered the price.
No bids. No bids. Well, a long time ago, remember, my wife and I decided we weren't having kids.
Yeah, but the kids didn't. They were still there when you got home, right?
Yeah, they've taken the news really poorly.
Yeah.
Leonard says, why don't ants get sick?
Because they have antibodies.
They have antibodies. I got sick a lot years back, and my boss kept asking me why I was always sick on weekdays. I said, well, I think I have a weakened immune system.
Yeah, I used to call in because I had an eye problem.
Yeah.
Couldn't see going to work.
All right. Break. We're 3 minutes in. We've got an audience. Let's get started. Everyone, thanks for joining. We're excited today to take a look at how to simplify getting data access so that you can monitor things like remote assets, or, I mean, frankly, anything you want to. And thanks to the Phoenix Contact team for being here to show us a business use case solved 2 different ways. And there's still dad jokes rolling in the comments. Feel free to drop more dad jokes in the comments. We'll use them in future episodes.
Yes.
Alan will add them to his spreadsheet. Dave, thanks for sticking through some bad weather. And to the audience, Dave's got some interesting internet going on right now. So if he disappears, no worries, we'll figure it out. But with that, Dave, I'm going to kick off your share.
All right. Well, thank you to IntegrateLive for inviting us to do this today. We really do appreciate it. We've been part of this community now for 2-3 years and always enjoy the content. And today we're going to kind of take it back to very basics. There are still a lot of people out there who are early on their journeys. We want to do one of the simplest use cases and kind of show 2 different ways of approaching solving it. So about the simplest IoT use case you could have is remote monitoring, as opposed to remote monitoring and control or anything more difficult like that. So if you look at the graphic here, it's pretty self-explanatory. We've got some things out in the field somewhere, temperatures, pressures, whatever they might be. We're going to bring them into our PLCnext and then use it as kind of the aggregator and the edge gateway to then get that to a cloud, which could be a true public remote cloud, or it could be something on premise, and then ultimately get that into some kind of a application, or at least onto a web page that people can view that from anywhere on the internet as long as they have proper access. And we'll show, like I said, 2 different ways of doing that, and they have their pros and cons, and some of them can be built upon, others are kind of just what they are. So without much further ado, I'll move on to the next slide, and we'll look at the agenda real quickly. So the problem statement is you can't manage what you can't measure. So this is all about perhaps extending our ability to measure things and manage things down to areas where we maybe couldn't have economically done that before, or practically done that before for technical reasons. And we're going to kind of solve that 2 ways. The first way we're going to kind of call save my bacon, and you'll see why. And the second one, we're just going to kind of talk about, when we know when to roll a truck and when we don't have to, and how we can be better prepared if we do roll a truck to know what we're going to encounter when we get on site, and we'll be able to fix it with the right tools the first time we get out there. So the next bullet is, why are people interested in using IIoT approach, or digitalization approach, or Industry 4.0 approach in the first place? Haven't we been doing SCADA for 30 years or so, 40 years very successfully? Yes, we have, but we'll see some real reasons why this IIoT type of approach is catching on. We'll explain now that, IIoT and similar terms may have been buzzwords for 3, 4, 5 years. Everybody posturing to be the smartest person in the room, perhaps, or at least that's the way it seemed. I think everybody's reset, and now people are looking at IIoT as just a set of tools to solve a very distinct problem that's been identified with your process or with your business. And we'll review that just for a second. And I just want to underscore, we're not going to do any super highfalutin rocket science today. We're just going to do some very basics. We can build on this in future episodes, and we have the ability and the roadmap to do that. But today is just kind of getting a couple of constituencies out there more familiar with this whole concept of getting to the cloud, or leveraging IIoT, or what we'll call publisher subscriber architecture. We'll do a quick talk about PLCnext, because that's really the heart of what we're using to get all this accomplished today. And then we'll go into the 2 actual exercises and demos. And again, one will use something we call Proficloud, which is a Phoenix Contact provided cloud system. And then the other one is for the people out there in IntegrateLive land, of which many are very well familiar with Ignition. And so we'll show an easy way to use Sparkplug to get onto Ignition. Okay, first, I would say raise your hand, but I can't see you right now. But I think a lot of folks would be raising their hands right now if I asked who recognizes this pyramid here. So it's been called the Purdue model. It's been called the automation pyramid. It's been called various other things. As I say here, it's been tried and true and has worked for many years, many decades. We know these familiar layers from the bottom where the sensors and actuators are, all the way up to the management level, the ERP system. And it's, like I said, it serves us very well as an automation community. What has become difficult, though, especially with cybersecurity and zones and conduits and different firewalls and so forth, is to integrate something maybe from this bottom layer all the way up to the top layer. It could involve perhaps 3 or 4 different integrators, all with specialty skill sets, just to get one piece of data up there. And then it's kind of stovepiped. And if you need another piece of data, maybe that's another integration effort. And that's complicated. But it gets even worse when you realize that a lot of times you're trying to do this across an entire enterprise. And now if you try to get something from site A over here back to this system, that could be even more complex. So it's called, although it's been effective and it still works, it's called into existence a more streamlined approach. These 4 companies. So what do these 4 companies and many others have in common?
I wish I would have bought their IPO.
Yeah.
They'd if we invested in them 10 years ago, we'd all be retired on a beach somewhere. Yes. So all 4 of these were not even in existence a generation ago. All 4 of these are massive, biggest kind of companies in the entire world. And finally, it's very obvious with the first 3, but also the 4th, they all use data as their primary currency and really value and wring every bit of value out of data that they possibly can. And that's really been the key to their growth. And my contention and many other people's contention would be that if you are a manufacturer of anything and you're not getting the most out of your data, you will slowly lose that race. So it's imperative that we get data, that we clean data, that we bring every bit of value out of data and be able to exchange it back and forth appropriately and securely, but do so easily without any friction. So that's what's called into mind and into existence, this new model to kind of replace the rigid automation pyramid with what we call a publisher subscriber architecture. This will be very old hat to a lot of folks on the call, but to some folks it'll be new. Basically, the concept there is that you've got different pieces of equipment that are producing data, publishing it, doing so securely, as you see by these shields here, to something called a broker, which is just some software running on a server. It could run in a cloud, it could run on premise, it could even run on the PLCnext itself. And then there are various stakeholders out there who would be subscribing to that data. So one piece of data comes in, and if all three of these are subscribing to it, they all get updated appropriately. And these are actually two-way communications channels. So if everything's set up in a proper way, it doesn't just mean that these are only consuming data, it can also answer back. Now, in a remote monitoring only situation, we keep it pretty streamlined, but when we get into remote control and other types of things, then it becomes important that these guys out here might be able to write to the system and then change something down at the PLC level. Okay, so I've mentioned before that, a while back, IIoT and all these other terms in this cloud here were kind of like buzzwords for a lot of folks, and they weren't really providing much value, perhaps 5 years ago, six years ago when this was coming out. A lot of confusion, a lot of doubt. We've gotten through that trough of uncertainty and disillusionment, and now people are actually gaining real business value. Things like improvement in OEE, energy efficiency, asset management, predictive maintenance, lots of other stuff. It's because now people are looking at a real problem first, and how do we solve that problem, and simply looking at IIoT as a toolbox to fix that problem. So, there's different tools in the toolbox. You might need some of them, all of them, depends on the situation at hand. But that's the better way of looking at IIoT or digitalization or Industry 4.0, whatever you want to call it today. So back to our original slide, we're going to solve the one use case, remote monitoring, two different ways. One is really aimed at the PLC programmer who's maybe been doing this for 20, 30 years. They know IEC 61131 programming, function block, ladder logic, structured text, whatever they might be comfortable with, but a programming environment that they're used to. And what they don't know is how to then get that to a cloud or into an IIoT system. So one way we're going to show how to do that is called Proficloud. And then the second way we're going to solve this is for somebody who's already an Ignition SCADA fan. They know that system, and we're just going to show how we can get data using our PLC and Sparkplug up into there. It's intended to be foundational and simple. Future sessions will, build on this foundation, but today will be fairly straightforward. And first,
Dave,
please go ahead.
Yeah, Dave. Let's just real quick. Just pause for a second. Let's just real quick have a quick conversation around the fact that what we're demonstrating today is plug and play IIoT. This gives you, as the audience, as we talk about our use case, the flexibility to bring the best in breed to your infrastructure. So you're not trying to build everything on top of one platform with this architecture, right? We're going to focus on MQTT, specifically MQTT Sparkplug. Plug for the audience: if you aren't actively involved in the Sparkplug working group, you're an end user and you're already using MQTT in your organization, you're a vendor, please look at getting active in the Sparkplug working group. It's how we are collectively, as a community, maintaining a specification that enables all of this functionality today. I think actually I saw Arlen on the call earlier. Arlen, if I could ask you, if you're still on the call, maybe drop in the comments link for the group. But today's business use case is all about making it easy to get access to your data, and then being able to choose with this architecture where you want to send that data, what application you want to visualize this data in, what else needs to have access to this. And I just want to say thank you to Phoenix Contact for embracing this technology on your hardware, because as the group's getting ready to see, the PLCnext, it's appropriately named. It is that next generation of PLC that, frankly, as a software vendor myself, I can go take my solution and load it onto the PLCnext. Well, Dave, I don't want to steal your thunder, so that actually maybe.
No, it's very appropriate, and that's one thing we don't want to lose here. Is we are kind of sponsoring this particular episode, but it's the openness message still resounds throughout this whole community. And for example, when we talk about this Proficloud, yes, it's a all-in-one kind of solution that Phoenix Contact helps provide. But if you were to ever be disenchanted with the Proficloud as your means of viewing this data and logging this data, the PLCnext itself could then easily be redirected to a different broker and then sent to a different cloud service or to something like Ignition. So you haven't lost your investment in the hardware and a lot of the foundational firmware and initial steps that you've taken, the protocols, etc. So it still remains quite open. It's just kind of a convenience that will show you the Proficloud, and it is good in its own right, but it might not be perfect for every application. So you haven't lost that investment. The openness is still there, and that's what's kind of cool about it. And that's why we really like working with IntegrateLive to show that off. So a little bit about the PLCnext. I got some chicken scratch over here we can forget about for now. That just has to do with security. I'm going to dive into that a little bit more in a moment. I'm not sure if we're synced up here. Are you guys seeing the PLCnext on your screens or not?
We're not, but that's okay. Let me take over for you on that, okay?
Yeah, there you go. Perfect. Okay, so on the left, you see, well, again, I forgot to change my graphic. It's something very closely related to our PLCnext. So the PLCnext looks very much like that. That's not an exact picture of it, but it's a very small form factor CPU, and it's got a couple Ethernet ports and some other connectivity inside there. What we're showing that as kind of like the traditional PLC, and then plus Linux computer. We recognize Raspberry Pi there. So think of it as being those two things. And Jeff, if you click once, those two
Dave,
should come together.
You're back and good.
I'm back. Okay.
Yep.
Good. Okay. So it's a combination of those two things. So think of it as an open Linux platform computer and also a traditional PLC, both wrapped together. And I did want to mention cybersecurity. It's absolutely imperative that everybody keep that top of mind. So we were the first PLC to embrace IEC 62443-4 for manufacturers. Now that standard's been out there for quite some time for system integrators and actually applying the products in a certain way. And when we showed that automation pyramid before, they had a method of securing that through zones and conduits for many years. So now they're pushing it down to manufacturers as well. So it's a much more holistic standard. And so we've embraced that from the ground up with a TPM 2.0 chip inside here, firewalls built into it, lots of other technology certificates so that the unit itself is safe. So that's great. So that still does not preclude the integrator from also adopting safe practices from there on out, but at least you know the heart of this thing and the hardware is safe. Real slide on the PLCnext. So you see this unit here. It's based on a Linux called Yocto, which is kind of custom built for PLCs, lightweight and so forth, but allows open source development. This top right shows PLCnext Engineer, which is our programming environment, very analogous to anybody else who has a PLC and that's got a programming package for it. Ours is free. So you can use it and do ladder logic, structured text, function block programs like you would have been used to with IEC 61131 programming. So that's old hat for PLC programmers, and you can do all your programming in that if you so desire. Or if you're newer on the scene and you're more familiar with these high-level languages down at the bottom right, C++, C#, HTML, MATLAB. Don't show it here, but Node-RED, lots of other stuff. You could also program in that way. You can do both in the same program, essentially, and have different programmers focus on what they're good at. And then off to the bottom left, we show easy cloud connectivity for IoT readiness. So we're going to show Proficloud today. We're also going to show AWS today, although it might not be super obvious because it's going to just look like Ignition, but it just so happens that we have our Ignition instance on an AWS account. So that's the PLCnext. And then we are now going to jump into the first way of solving this use case. And so we will have programmed our PLC in a traditional programming environment, again, with that free PLCnext engineered software, just a simple program to do some simple monitoring. In that environment, Gene has selected Proficloud as our desire for this data to go up to that cloud. And then once we're up on that cloud, called Proficloud, we are actually using Grafana, which is an open source visualization package for time series data, to do the presentation and dashboarding of that. So I just did want to mention that all this hardware, and including that software, because we're under 20 metrics, so it's a free tier for the cloud, is under $1,400. So we always like to talk about cost and be transparent. When I say we, I mean IntegrateLive. So we wanted to show you that. So that's where I'm going to stop mine, and I think Jeff can take over and show. Oh, I guess I got one more slide. I apologize. I did want to show the architecture. So Gene will be running this next, and he is in Georgia. And he's got a series of coolers and freezers associated with commercial food, like restaurant, bakery, warehousing, etc., that are going to be monitored. Lee is not available today, but Nick is on the call today, and they also were instrumental in working on this Proficloud application. So all three of those folks had something to do with it. Now the the subscriber, publisher subscriber architecture. This would be the publisher. It's going to the broker, which is actually part of the Proficloud, which happens to be in Germany. And then Proficloud is kind of the subscriber to that data. So that's kind of how we're conforming to that architecture that we showed earlier. Again, this may be scary to some folks. This could all be done on premises to a degree as an option, but I just wanted to mention what we're looking at today. So without further ado, let's actually get into the demo, and Gene will take over from here. Thank you.
Yeah. All right. Well, Gene, thank you. Tell us real quick, what's your role at Phoenix Contact?
So I am a senior control and systems IIoT engineer. And
all right.
Sometimes I don't say those words in the right order because the title's so long. Thank you, Dave.
All right. Gene, we'll let you grab the right screen, and then I'm ready to share as soon as you flip over.
All right. Sounds good. Thank you.
Uh-huh.
So today we're going to talk about how to connect our PLC platform to Proficloud. Proficloud.io is the website that we're referring to. It's where you would actually go in and register and log into your service and allow you to set up the service. So briefly, I want to talk about Proficloud just for a minute. Proficloud is a service offered by Phoenix Contact. So the service includes time series data, which is what we're going to focus on today. It also allows you to do things like device management. The device management service allows you to update firmware and your program or application over the internet. There's also user management services to give different users access to the Proficloud service. It allows you to set up alerts. If you actually have a temperature or a pressure or any IO point that you want to have be an alarm indication, you can have those alerts set up in Proficloud under the user management service. You also have the ability to monitor if your PLCs are online or if there are any issues with the PLC itself. Some of these services are free of charge, like our device management service and our time series data service up to 20 metric. And then there are some services that actually we charge for, and that can be discussed separately. But one of the examples is energy monitoring, surge protection, the time series data, which is our PLC variable monitoring capabilities. And there's some other services with EV that's actually pending. So we're going to be adding services to this platform soon. So that's a summary of Proficloud.io. It's free to go out and register for the account. And once you get your hands on one of our PLCs, our flagship PLC for the PLCnext platform is the 2152. This is just a more accurate representation of the graphic that Dave had up earlier. His is a little bit nicer because you can see it has 2 Ethernet ports. The 2 Ethernet ports are hidden on the bottom here. So, but this is actually, I'm logged into a 2152 now. I'm actually on site at the customer facility because I wanted to be able to update and program the PLC locally. So I'm actually on site and I'm connected to this PLC on the facility. You'll notice there is a web-based management service built into the PLC. I've already logged into it. Because it's a secure device, there is authentication you have to do, or you have to tell it to bypass that service through one of your settings. I'm not going to go into a lot of great detail about what you could do here, but you'll notice there's a lot of different capabilities to allow you to remotely connect to, monitor, and set up your product, whether it's a firmware update, whether it's setting up user profiles, setting up your firewall, or in the case of what we're doing today, we're going to be setting up the Proficloud service connection. So there's a couple of things you got to do to set up the connection. I'm going to actually show you a list. And I'm showing you this list because it helps me as well not to forget something during this presentation. But there's about 9 items in the list. And the first thing we're going to do is we're going to create a PLCnext engineer project, which, by the way, step 1 I've already done for the sake of time. But that's something, if you're interested in seeing in greater detail, you want to get with us locally and we'll help you with that. Step 2 is I'm going to use the web-based management page that we just looked at to enable the Proficloud communications to make it available to Proficloud for setup and use. And then step 3, we need to program logic with the PLC to include Proficloud variables and to make those connections available to the Proficloud connection. If you haven't created the Proficloud account, you would want to set that up. In the case, of course, my demo, I already have that set up. I actually have a live working system that I'm going to show you as well, is I'm going to actually add on to that system live today. So we're going to add a device to the Proficloud account. Currently, I have 2 active devices that have been in operation for about 2 weeks now, and I'll show you the history of that account and show you how it's useful. You can, step 6, you would actually assign metrics, which is the same as saying you're going to take an IO point and you're going to make it available to the Proficloud dashboard. And then by making it available to the dashboard, you can build graphs and indicators and logs, things like that. And then we're also going to create alerts. We're going to make those alerts available to email accounts as well. So that's the summary of what we plan to do here today. So on the Proficloud account, this is actually a dashboard that's already set up for a business in Statesboro. And essentially what we're doing is we're monitoring coolers and freezer temperatures. We're monitoring door statuses. We're monitoring certain alerts if certain things get out of whack as far as temperature. If the doors stay open too long, those alerts or alarms are logged. But some of them are also set up to send alerts via email to a list of users. This is a very helpful thing if you have a business that needs to monitor activity of a system. In the case of this business, if something goes out of whack with the cooler or temperature and it's over a weekend, or let's say the last 2 days, we actually had a hurricane come down through or from Florida to Georgia. So the businesses have been shut down for the last 2 days. Nobody was there. So if they lost power, or if one of the coolers got hit by lightning, or let's say there was a flood and it caused one of the units to go out, you would actually see that in this on this dashboard, and it would give you an alarm to indicate so. So, and the cool thing about this dashboard is you can see, you know, this is immediately what's going on. I have some immediate things. I also have a history, and the history can be looked at. You know, you could actually narrow it down to the last 30 minutes if you want. If you're trying to get a little more detail on something that just happened, or if you want to, you know, go back a few days just to see if there's a pattern of something happening. And you'll notice here we're monitoring coolers, we're monitoring doors, and we're also monitoring ambient temperature in rooms to determine, you know, if the air conditioning units are going out or if there's an issue there. And this is just a sampling of 2 controllers. You can, your dashboards can be a lot more, you can have a lot more to them. So this is just a good example of what we're doing. So the Proficloud dashboard is here. And what we're doing is, you'll see I already have 2 devices set up. There's a warehouse location, there is a bakery location, and the third location that will be added will be a restaurant location. For the sake of doing the demonstration today, I will add a third location. But in order to get your device available where you can actually add your device, you have to do some things on the PLC side to make them available. And that's what we're going to do first. So we already have the PLCnext project. PLCnext projects created in a software package we call PLCnext Engineer. This project is already set up. There's some basic code. You can see I don't have much there, but I'm going to add some code here just to show you how we add variables to the Proficloud system. There's a couple of things you have to do to make the Proficloud work. One of the things you have to do is you have to make sure your time is in sync with the time at the cloud service location. Now, this won't affect your time at your local facility, but it's just a matter of syncing the time between events. So that's one of the areas that you would want to have set up. The other areas, of course, there's a lot more to the software as far as programming. I've skipped a few steps here, but for the sake of time, again, we needed to do that. But we already have a program called main. That program main is already set up in a task. Here. And you'll notice that it's is set to run on 100 milliseconds. But we're going to set up just a simple program. It's going to be just a timer. And there's 2 ways you could actually type. If you know what your, misspelling. If you know what your functions are, you can actually type them, and whatever letters you type here, they will pull up in a pull down menu. Or if you need to search for them, you can actually go over to the list on the right hand side and grab one. Don't want that. We're just going to do timer on, and we're going to say, okay, if this door is open for an extended period of time, and that time can be, you know, in practical use, it would be maybe 10 minutes. For the sake of what we're doing here, I'm going to make it a much smaller amount, 30 seconds, pound 30. And we're going to indicate we're going to have an entry door alarm. So we're going to set this up. Sorry, I'm online, guys, and I'm not paying attention to what I'm doing here. So I just need to make sure I go offline so I can create a new variable. So the way you set up your variables to actually work, and there's a lag in my program responding here for some reason, but the way you set up your variables to work with Proficloud is when you have your variable list, there's something called an output. So you would select your output here, and there is a checkbox that says Proficloud. Now, if you download the latest version of PLCnext Engineer, which is 2024.6, this Proficloud is actually changed to IoT. So it's the same. You just want to make sure those two things are checked. And by doing that, it would make that available to Proficloud. For some reason, my program's acting weird. I don't know if it's because we're online here, but we're just going to go with that. So we're going to indicate that the variable is going to be PC Lite 1, and that's going to be the output for Proficloud. We can download this code. We can write and start project, write and start project changes. And that program would actually be written to the PLC. Okay. I'm going to go online with it. So I can actually manually set these values once we get started, and you'll actually see the values change on the Proficloud service. So we're going to go to the Proficloud service now, and we're going to set that up. So first, before we do that, we need to set up the PLC connection to Proficloud, which is here. In this service, you'll notice there's a UUID number. That UUID number needs to be copied. And I'm just going to copy it real quick. I'm going to go ahead and enable connection. If you were starting from scratch and you enable this connection, you may have to drop down here and make sure these are selected Proficloud. Some of these actually may not be indicated. And just for the sake of making everything start up smoothly, I check all these boxes, leave everything else by default, and hit apply. And by doing that, it's going to start trying to connect, but you'll notice that it is not registered with the Proficloud service yet. So we're going to have to go out and register that device by adding that device here. So we're going to add device. I'm going to paste that. And you want to make sure you don't have any leading spaces, because if you have a leading space, it's going to give you an error. It likes for me to type in the address. Of course, you could put any address here if you want. It doesn't have to be very specific. If you want to hide your location, you could put anything. You could put just the state or the city, and any comments or tags that you want. But once you add the Proficloud device or device to Proficloud, you'll see it comes up. It's going to show you that it's never been seen. So what we want to do is we want to reset device token. And that's going to give authorization to the PLC to connect to Proficloud. Okay. And then it takes a minute or two to go through that process. In the meantime, we're going to go back out to our software, and I'm just going to go ahead and write a true value to that indicator, so that once we program the time series data on the Proficloud service, we'll start getting indication right away. So right now, the device is online. It has connected, which sometimes it takes 2-3 minutes. So just be patient with it. But one thing you got to do once you connect is you actually have to assign or make the variables that you've selected in the software. And I'll tell you what the yellow here is in a second, with the Proficloud service. So one of the features of Proficloud is it gives you indication if there's a problem with the PLC. The other day I was testing a system, and I actually had a failure on the PLC. And this was red. So red is a failure typically. Yellow is going to be more of a warning. And this warning, I can already know in advance what the warning is. The warning is basically telling me, hey, you don't have any IO connected to the PLC. If you go back to the PLC over here, you'll notice we have no IO connected. It's just a PLC because you're just doing a demo. So these are internal variables. They're not connected to IO. If you wanted to see the actual program where they're connected to IO, I can pull that up. But for the sake of this demo, this is what the yellow indicates. But we still can assign metrics through the services. You want to go down to the time series data. You want to go to assign metrics. You'll notice that the PC Lite 1, which is the one that I selected there in the very simple program, we can just hit assign, and it would make that IO point available to my dashboard. So now I can go over to my dashboard, and one of the things, if you like this way this is laid out, you can copy or duplicate these layouts, and it will just create another one just like it. And then it's up to you to go in and change, your title, which IO points tied to it. Maybe you want to change your color, things like that. So what we want to do here is we want to tie that to that third device. And we're going to look for the IO point that we included. And you'll notice that it already is showing up on the graph. You want to hit save, and you can hit apply, and it will take you back to the dashboard. You can change how often this updates, and you can also, again, change the time frame as to what your graph is indicating. And you can move these around on your screen however you like. You can actually set up different tabs where, like if you had 3 different locations like we do, we can have a tab for each location. That way you don't make your screen so busy. You could break it down into chunks of information, so to speak. So you'll notice if we go back here, you'll see also that it indicates it's online. If you see that yellow indicator and you don't know what's going on, you may want to go to the diagnostics. You'll see everything's cool here. It's just there's no IO connected. So that is basically just telling me, hey, you don't have any IO connected to the PLC. You can also go over here, and if you want to just see your process work, sorry, didn't mean to do that. You can turn your variables or your inputs, outputs on and off as needed to demonstrate the process. The other thing we want to do is set up alerts. So we already have some alerts set up. You'll notice that little heart right there. That's because these have alerts already set up. This one does not. So what I want to do is I'm going to go down here and click on edit. And then we're going to go to the tab down at the bottom that's called alert. And we're going to create an alert. We're going to check the alert from 1 minute to, and you can make the alert whatever time frame you want. So for 1 to 10 minutes, I want to verify my last known indication. So if for 10 minutes, basically my last is above 0, which in this case we're on off. So it's going to be a simple alert, right? So if this was temperature, you can make the temperature. In fact, I'll show you what one of the temperatures look like. But essentially, I'm just want to determine if that input stays on for more than 10 minutes, I want to send an alert. And that alert would go by the case of here, a notification set up to the Sugar Magnolia staff, which is default. You can add other notifications for different metrics. And again, we're going to save and we're going to apply. You'll notice if we go back here, I'm just going to show you what the other alerts look like. Here's an alert. And again, for 1 to 15 minutes, if the temperature in this cooler is above 50 degrees for 15 minutes, we know that there's a major problem, or somebody left the door open way too long, and bakery cooler is above normal temperature for more than 15 minutes. So that's just a quick and easy way to let your staff know, or let the technicians, users, administrators know that you have a problem that needs to be addressed. And that's what you do there. So in order to create the list of alerts, I'm just going to show you there's alerting rules. You'll notice there's a list of all my alerting rules. You can edit those here. You can stop them, but you also could set up a notification channel. And that notification channel can be a list of email addresses, and you can have multiple channels if you prefer. You could even test if you want to make sure that it's working correctly. So it's as simple as that to set up an alert. You know, there's a lot more to Proficloud than what I'm showing you here today. This is, if you do all the steps, this would take less than an hour to set up. It's really fairly straightforward, as long as you follow those 9 steps that I talked about. On the PLC side, you know, it's key to, this software is free to download, by the way. The only thing is just key to understanding that your firmware matches on both your project and your PLC. You create your code and you link whatever variables you want to the Proficloud service. I've gotten in a habit to going from making my Proficloud variables I indicate with the PC, just so I can keep them straight inside the program, but that's up to you as a user to decide how you want to do that. That software is free to download from our website. PhoenixContact.com. You can actually search for PLCnext Engineer and download that software today. And then the Proficloud is proficloud.io, which is also Phoenix Contact Service. If you have any questions, I can take those now if that's okay with you guys.
Gene, I've got a question. Does the Phoenix Contact have the ability to have like a soft PLC where, you know, you can download the program for free, but is there an opportunity to be able to connect to some soft PLC or something that you can go online with your code, see how your code reacts, edit or change, and see that maybe the Proficloud, you know, because I can download the program, but if I can't go online with it, if I don't have a Phoenix Contact processor, then is there an option to run a soft PLC type of in a demo mode or something?
I'm not aware of anything like that. I mean, we have simulation software for our PLCs, but
I think that's what I'm asking. And is that just something you download and you run against, or?
I honestly, Steve may know the answer, Nick may know the answer, but I haven't used that simulation software with Proficloud. I have no idea if it would work or not. Do you know, Steve?
You're on mute, Steve.
Muted, Steve.
Steve's on mute.
There we go.
There you go.
How many times have you heard that? Yeah. Yeah. So the simulations software, I don't know of anybody that has done that, and pushing it to the cloud. But what you're doing with the simulator is it's basically installing a small virtual Linux OS on your PC, and you can simulate the web server and everything going there. The only thing I would think is how you would generate the UUID and get it connected to the cloud.
Yeah, because the UUID is tied to the PLC directly, right? That's your physical address. Yeah.
I mean, there is a way to add a virtual.
Yeah, There may be some level of abstraction with the UUID, so that might be possible. That's a great question, Alan. We'll have to get back to you. I think on the final, I mean, the simulation is great for most things we do with PLCnext. We just probably haven't tried it with Proficloud amongst our group here. So
Yeah, and I'm just,
good point.
so as I'm watching your demo, Gene, the things that are starting to kick up for me are, okay, if I've got Phoenix Contact, I've got it in the field, I'm running it, but I'm not really using time series data. I don't have an option to do that. Well, now, using the steps you showed, I can go register with Proficloud, get my UUID, connect to it, and then just go into my tags and start saying, hey, I want to trend this and this and this, and then go build me a dashboard, right?
Yeah, I mean, it's a good concept. I just don't know if it'll work with our
there is information out on the Proficloud website under the Knowledge Hub in creating a Proficloud connection with Node-RED.
Oh, that'd be great. Yeah.
Yeah.
Just here's what look, you've got people on here that may never have bought Phoenix Contact PLC, saw what you did, want to just go and say, hey, I just want to dabble and see how this works. And if there's an option to be able to, download the free software, connect it to Node-RED, do some, that'd be awesome. Yeah. People could actually go and test it.
So one of the things we're working on, which is still a little bit down the road, is we're eventually going to have the ability to run a containerized version of PLCnext Engineer on any operating system. It's something we're working with it's a Podman technology. So it's currently being tested with a beta site or a customer now.
It's true.
Once we pass that, we will start the process of launching that product. But, we're probably still a few months, if not several months down the road. So that may be a way to handle the same situation. And there may be a free version of that or just a demo version of that customers will be able to use, which would achieve essentially what you're asking for.
Yeah. But for anybody who is now running a Phoenix Contact, they have the hardware on hand.
Yeah.
They've got the ability to be able to have that connect to the cloud, which is an interesting concept, right? We're talking, this is we did a IntegrateLive with Opto22 and Phoenix Contact, where we really kind of tried to showcase our, what is a next generation PLC look like. And the reality of it is it looks like the ability to be able to take a PLC, connect it to the cloud, get a level of segmentation within the PLC so that you're still protecting your control system, but you're giving the ability to be able to publish out to the cloud safely, right? Well, now somebody who has a Phoenix Contact doesn't have that, that concept kind of understood or is using it. Well, this is a path to be able to maybe step your feet into that and start thinking about, hey, we can take advantage of this service and the dashboard and do it right now.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Any other questions? People just type it into the chat, and we'll try to get to it after the next presentation, the next demo. Just I guess by way of editorializing, just a quick summary. So Gene presented a real problem. That problem is, if the temperature goes too high for too long in those freezers or coolers, they could have a health issue, food safety issue, or have to throw out a lot of food. So that's why we call it Operation Save My Bacon. It seems like those things always happen when the stores are unattended, for the weekend or something like that. So this is
it's always a weekend or a holiday. It's never during when people are around.
So this is an early warning system that allows him to get back into compliance and also to have a trail to show perhaps somebody that, yes, it was above 50, but that it was only lasted for 12 minutes. Okay. And so it can really save, many-fold the cost of the system. If you just save, one batch of food one time and from a freezer, that's a huge cost savings right there.
Well, and cost of system, Dave, right? It's $1,400 of hardware. It's free to use Proficloud for 20 points. So
Right.
what? It's $70 a point. Like that.
One time.
ROI. Yeah.
Yeah. Yep. So it's been quite compelling. So and we use the underneath the hood. MQTT is actually being used for us to access the Proficloud. It's invisible to the people using it, but that's actually the technology that's underneath the hood. So we are using that publisher subscriber architecture, and it's quite. We wanted to make it easy. We're using Grafana as that dashboarding tool. That is an open source tool that other people have gained experience in, and they could transfer that to some other vendor, perhaps if they became disenchanted with us, or they could leave that whole architecture altogether and do something on premise if they wanted to at some point later. So you're investing in that hardware, and you're not wasting that investment, no matter which way you might go in the future. So we will segue now. If we can go back to my screen just for a second, we're going to segue away from solution one, which is Proficloud, and go to the second one, which just costs a little bit more, maybe $100 more. And that's really because we needed to add a 8 gig SD card to our PLC for some enhanced memory and so forth. So we're going to still program it the traditional way, the PLC itself. We will go to the PLCnext store online, and we'll download a free app called the PLCnext Edge Gateway from our store. That application gives us a low-code, no-code way of implementing Sparkplug, having a Sparkplug driver that then we can connect to the broker of our choice, and then go from that broker to whatever person that wants to subscribe to that data. In this case, that will be Ignition. And Ignition, it just so happens, is also hosted on the cloud, AWS. That could have been remote on your own premises or on your own premises. So without further ado, I'll show you the architecture there, and then we'll go right into it. So here we have 3 different PLCs in 3 different states. Steve is going to be running this. He's in Pennsylvania. Dan couldn't be with us today. He's out at a trade show, but he's from Illinois, and he worked on it. And Nick is there in the background in Texas. He worked on his system down there. And those are all going back to the broker, which happens to be a free tier of HiveMQ, which this one's hosted in Europe. They have other servers elsewhere. It could be in the US as well. And then they come back to the subscriber, which is, I believe it's in Virginia. It's an AWS data center somewhere, and I think it's Virginia, and it's hosting Ignition there. So one of the cool anecdotes about this is for those folks who haven't done cloud-based things and remote internet-based things and thought, hey, it's easier to just keep it all in my own plant. Well, this abstracts everything, and this is really cool. None of the 3 guys here today are super Ignition experts, but we do have several who work for Phoenix Contact. So we were able to go online with that gentleman, and he helped us spiff up our screens a little bit in real time, and we all could collaborate together as if we were all sitting around one common computer. This is just last week. So it does show you how leveraging the internet appropriately can actually help drive collaboration. So, and bring the experts to the issue instead of bringing the issue to the experts. So without further ado, we'll turn it over to Steve and look at the second part of this.
Okay. Yeah, so to get started, I'm going to just pull up a couple steps here in what would be involved and what I'm going to walk through here. So as Dave mentioned, we're going to go out to the PLCnext store and download the PLCnext Edge Gateway installer. And then and I'll show you how that looks and how you would install the gateway application onto the 2152. After that's installed on the hardware, it is really it's all web-based driven for configuration right from any browser that you would have on your PC. So you can configure the spark plug adapter, the connections to the broker, add tags from PLCnext Engineer or hardware directly on the PLC, and start publishing those tags to the broker. I'll show you a brief explanation of how you're going to sign into the broker that we have running here, for example, in Ignition, and then also subscribe to those metrics that we are publishing in Ignition Designer. So the PLCnext store is just that. You can go out to PLCnextstore.com. This is a repository of free libraries and applications that are out here. There are other applications that are at some type of cost. You would be ability, for example, to, if you would create an app for the PLCnext controller, you could put it out on the store and recuperate some engineering costs and these type of things if you'd want to share that data. The PLCnext Edge Gateway app is easily found here. I just typed in Edge in the search bar. Once you go out here, I got sat too long. There we go. Try this again. There we go. So then you can go download this here. If you have questions about the app or issues or feedback, you can always directly contact the developer of the app right here as well. If you want to share this app, you can do that. There are some screenshots and information on change revisions as well as hardware that it is supported at this moment. So you would just download the installer. It takes a minute or so, and then once that's installed, you will get a shortcut on your desktop here. If I can get it over here. Try it again. There we go. And you're going to put in the IP address of the hardware on here. Default from the factory is 1.10, and the password is printed on the default password is printed on the front of the controller. It's unique to that hardware, and it's highly recommended to change that after you are logged in for the first time. Really, then you're just going to click Next, go online to the controller, and everything else is done just from this installer. Once the installer is finished, it takes a few minutes, and then the PLC will automatically reboot. What you'll get from there is being able to log into the Edge dashboard via, I'm using an Edge browser and the IP address /Edge. And you'll get to this interface. I already have things set up on here, but when you would first install it, all you're really going to see is the Axio line. This will automatically read in the hardware that is connected to the PLC, and you can actually go down through here and see the status of these inputs, digital outputs, for example. And I have a thermocouple module here with channel 1 configured, and you can see the status of that. Back to the dashboard, then it's from there, really what you're going to do is you can create local metrics here on the right side. So when you log into the gateway, you can have some local indication of whatever you want to see. And then also you would go here under drivers. Well, let's talk about the cloud connections first. If I select that, we can connect to and give you all the hooks and entry points to connect to AWS or Azure or Proficloud with this product as well. If you want to start publishing data to Sparkplug, you're going to go down here under drivers and add a drive. You're going to first enable the Sparkplug driver, and then after it's enabled, then you can add it. We also have drivers available for Ethernet IP and Modbus. These are client, the Modbus is a client driver, so you're going to be polling Modbus servers, as well as the Ethernet IP is a browser. You're going to browse and pull tags in from an existing PLC. But once that's in here, then really it's just a matter of adding that Sparkplug adapter and going into your settings. These settings are pretty much broken down into, this is the broker address, whether it's on premises, it's going to be an IP address, or if it's again here in the cloud, then we're going to go to the Hive in this example. You're going to get this information from your broker, the port address as well, and from there you're going to assign unique Sparkplug group ID, edge node, and client ID. That is to your discretion as you want to do that. There are some nice standards out there to define the device names and this type of things that makes it easier to follow when you're accessing these assets. And then the broker name and password is also, again, is going to be from that broker situation. After that is done, really the next step would be, first I'll show you how to add a tag, a new metric from the hardware that the edge gateway read in. So I can, create a tag here, and then you're just going to search the data source. From here, you can go into the downstream, and you can see Axio line right here and modules. And for example, there's the UTH module, channel 1, and you can add that. You can do other things like, well, you're going to configure if you want it to be a floating point or an integer. You can enable dead bands if you want to have that on change of state. So I already added the temperature and the tank. The tank is a level that we're simulating in PLCnext Engineer. That is so if you want to get data from a program that's running on the PLC, really all you have to do here is when you're declaring your variables, you also select that you want that to be an HMI tag, and that's going to pass that tag information to our web server, which is also shared with our REST API. So whether you have web pages defined and designed on your PLC, or if you are don't have any web pages, then you can just enable the REST API here. And then those tags are being passed to the API. And from there, if I would want to add tank 2, for example, now for the data source, I'm going to go down, instead of Axio line, I'm going to go to the PLCnext API, and there are all the values that I have for that are running in the PLC and being shared with the web server. So that's pretty much it there. You grab that tag, give it a name, select the data type, and you're ready to go. It'll start publishing. You're going to see here on your adapter, Sparkplug adapter, that it's publishing metrics. So from there, it's really pretty straightforward. You're going to go out to your gateway. I guess I'm going to have to log into this again here too. Sitting. If I am not going to sit here and pretend that I'm an Ignition expert, but I was able to run down through this with the help of Nick and
Hey, Steve.
Yeah.
Steve, click the reset trial in the green bar.
Okay.
There you go.
All right. Thank you. So from there, you're going to go into your gateway demo or gateway configuration, and from here, you'll see MQTT engine, and this is where you're going to add this server. It's at Nick's location, where Nick has the server set up. So that's the crazy naming convention I have. It's Nick's server, but it's connected to that broker. Again, in that picture, it's somewhere over in Europe, being hosted over there, but we're getting this information here. That's really what you want to do in Ignition gateway setup is just point and add that broker. Once that broker is added, you can go into Designer and build your screens as you want to do. If you're adding information here, for example, we have building 1, which is here in Pennsylvania, 2 is in Illinois, and 3 is in Texas. And you go to your tag browser, you just go right to that MQTT engine, and you'll be able to go to Edge nodes. And here's this PLCnext Edge that we set up on the broker. We're publishing to that. Here I'm publishing building 1 data, and I can go to PLC, and here's my tank level and temperature. And here's the building in Illinois, Dan's building, tank and temp, and then finally Nick's in Texas. And he's adjusting that manually, I think. So you'll see that all that information. Again, not going to go into a lot of information here on Ignition. This is more designed to just show you how to get the data out there. But we can do that, and we have just some simple alarming set up here, letting you know when that tank gets to above 70%. And that's all being published. You save it, and the last step would be to make that available on the web. So here we're logging into that IIoT Phoenix Contact demo, and we're seeing that data live on Ignition.
Awesome, Steve. And to those that aren't familiar, maybe in the audience, with Ignition, this really is a very straightforward solution with a simple Ignition license, a couple of modules from CirrusLink to enable the transfer of that data, or to enable the subscription to the broker, and then to expose those tags inside of Ignition. That was that MQTT engine module. It is really that easy to set this whole thing up. All right, Alan, we might have lost Dave's back. Good. I was afraid we lost Dave for bad internet. Dave, you want to start wrapping us?
Yeah, can you hear me all right?
Yep.
Okay, very good. I'm a little concerned because, like I say, my phone is hanging out the window, and that's my Wi-Fi tether at the moment.
You're
and
good.
I'm kind of, the window's wide open, and I can hear the all the destruction here with the tornadoes. I can hear a stump grinder out there going crazy. So hopefully you guys
I've got your noise cancellation on, and hey, I'm in a hotel lobby. Alan's in Oman. it is that type of episode, and that's okay. It's worked out great.
All right.
Steve,
Well, yeah. Well, thank you. I want to say thanks to my team here for all learning and presenting that in a very good way. Thank you, guys. Even the guys who didn't present did a great job in the background getting us ready for this. And I want to thank our hosts very much for helping us along the way here. They gave us some good ideas on naming conventions and namespace and stuff like that, and a lot of other encouragement and help. So thank you, Jeff and Alan. And thanks to everybody else for attending. Thank you, Arlen, for inventing MQTT and Sparkplug, if you're still out there. Other things. Kind of an important thing. So to bring us home, I just wanted to hit next step.
Sorry, Dave, before you wrap, I'm sorry. If to the audience, if you found value in what you saw today, do me a favor, register for our next event as well. So in 30 days, on the 4th of September, less than 30 days, 4 weeks from now, we're going to do a Stratus ZTC Edge demonstration. So we're going to use Stratus hardware, which allows for automatic rollover redundancy as well as virtualization to essentially create a scalable edge solution using a orchestration tool from Barbara that will allow you, in our demo, we're going to focus on MIG. So Matt and so this is right up your alley. We're going to give you the ability to use both Docker as well as Windows VM images to configure those, to deploy those out to Stratus hardware. We're going to simulate failover environments using Ignition, using Canary, using some other applications. And then we're going to also change the versions of those deployed solutions and manage that all from the Barbara orchestration app. So if you have to manage edge solutions, this is a powerful demonstration that we're going to be showing. And check over to the chat, and you can go ahead and follow that link and register for that. Sorry, Dave, had to plug it.
No, it's your platform. We're just happy to be part of it. So thank you for that.
It's our platform.
It's our platform.
You all are a big part of it. Yeah, that's right.
Thank you.
All right, wrap us up, Dave.
It's one of the clubs that's had me that I'm actually proud to be a part of. So anyhow, is my screen being shown again, or can you show the slide if it is not? Okay. So by way of next steps, Alan had brought up a good idea about the virtualization / the simulation. If you don't have our hardware, but you would like our hardware, I mentioned that these things were around $1,400 or $1,500. This starter kit is actually pretty much the hardware we've been talking about, more or less, and it's for the bargain price of $700. So we're selling these well below our cost to get them into people's hands. Optionally, you can get a hold of the SD card, and it does require our SD card for use with the system for security reasons. That's another $171, but that's only necessary for that second solution, the one where we went to Ignition and used the Edge Gateway. If you went to Proficloud, you wouldn't even need that. So these are available in stock in some limited quantity, but it gives you everything you need. There's already a program running on it, and it can be a great way to get started. There is a find your distributor thing down here, but rather than get you to that, let me just show you the cast of characters we had today, and this would probably be the best way if you had follow-up questions. If you check out the color codes here, depending on where you are, these would be the folks that you would contact for further information. It's basically just first initial, last name, and then at PhoenixContact.com. You can see we have 6 regions here. I am acting as a CSIE or control system and IoT engineer. I'm not really one, I'm just acting as one on TV today, but I'll be here to try to funnel things through if you have questions. And I believe this is all going to be recorded for posterity and put up on your hosted site there, like every other episode is. So if folks need to go back and review it, I'm sure they can do it that way. And I think that's a wrap. And thank you all very much.
Yeah, perfect. Well, Alan, safe travels back to the States. Enjoy the only place on earth that's hotter than Bakersfield right now.
I'm going to Tajikistan to see my kids and grandkids next, so it'd be good. Appreciate it. Thanks, Dave and Steve and Gene. Again, really highlights the opportunities that people may not be thinking about. So great job.
Yeah, thank you all.
Right.
Good.
And Alan, as we walk away, just know that I have had a tough relationship with my wife. She's really into astronomy and astrology, and it's just absolutely tore us apart. See everybody. Have a great day.
On that note, let's get out of here. Yeah. Thank you.
Bye.
All right, thanks. Thanks.